Okay, welcome to student development practice. My name is Joanna, if we've not met before. And for today's practice, we have 30 minutes and I'm going to guide you through a bolster practice. So in every pose, we're going to be using the bolster, and during the transitions, we'll use the bolster. So hopefully it will feel fluid and logical. It will be a kind of a blend between a yin and a hatha practice. So nice and slow, some longer holds, but it is also only 30 minutes and I want to show you lots of options with the bolster. So I might go a bit quicker than I would if it was a traditional, 1 hour class or 90-minute class. So it might look a little bit quicker than what it would usually be. So I hope this is useful. I hope it's a fun practice. We all love it when a bolster is used in class, or I know I do myself. So yeah, hopefully this gives you a few more tips and tools to support your teaching and your practice. And let's have some fun with the bolster. So if you have a bolster, great, bring it to your mat. If you do not have a bolster, then you can use a pillow or a couch cushion or something like that as a makeshift bolster. And I'm going to meet you on your mat. We're going to set up our first pose, which is going to be a child's pose. So once you find your way to your mat, widen your legs and bring the bolster in between the legs. We're going to lower our belly and our ribs and our chest, and then finally one ear. Softening the elbows, anchoring the front of your body down to the floor. If you have a gap between your pelvis and your heels, you can always add an additional prop there. Begin to receive your breath here, a couple rounds, smooth and slow. Breathing into the back of your ribs, relaxing your lower belly, settling your energy. I'll give you a couple more options here with the bolster in child's pose. So feel free to stay as you are, or feel free to come along for some of these other options. So if you're coming along, start to walk your hands onto the mat and towards your body. Turn the bolster the other way and place your hands to it. And then slide the bolster forwards as you extend your arms nice and long. Bringing your forehead towards the floor or onto a block. Keeping your hands connected to the bolster will allow the arms to lift a little higher than they would in a traditional child's pose, which might create a nice stretch around your shoulders and under your arms, maybe into your chest. If this feels too much, please bend the elbows some more and place them onto the floor. You can always keep your hands on the bolster. And feel free to play with how wide the hands are or how parallel they are, depending on what feels good for your shoulders. Take a few more breaths like this. This is a great option to start to build towards some chest and heart openers. It's also a great option if you work at a computer to create space and add a little bit of compression to your upper back. Another nice option here in child's pose would now be to lift your chest, slide the bolster in just enough to place your elbows to it. Maybe you push that bolster out a little bit more. Let the elbows rest, and then maybe your forehead rests on the bolster or down to the floor in front of the bolster. Connect the hands together, and you can allow the hands to be floating, pointing up to the sky, or you might bring your thumbs to the back of the head, back of the neck, or in between the shoulder blades, depending on what feels good for your triceps and around the shoulders. Continue breath here. Hopefully throughout this entire practice, we will have some body part in contact with the bolster at all times. The bolster is a great tool for filling space between our body and the floor. It's a great tool for getting deeper into postures, as well as sometimes supporting our body more in postures. Never be afraid to use the bolster and encourage your students to use the bolster. It is a great prop to support our practice. Let's take 3 more breaths like this. And then you can start to guide your hands back onto the bolster as you come upright and find your way onto your hands and knees, tabletop position. Have your hands on the bolster still and just add a little bit of movement through your hips and back, moving your head a little side to side, swinging the hips right and left. Nice. From here, inhale your right arm into the sky, look up to the right hand, and then exhale, sweep your right arm underneath your left arm. Turn the bolster slightly so it's on a diagonal line. So now you can lower your right ear and your right shoulder to the bolster. Press your left hand into the bolster to turn your chest more to the left, or put your left hand on the floor and turn your chest more to the left, whatever is more comfortable and feels more accessible to you. Further to this, you can walk your left fingers forwards to the front edge of the mat and slightly over to the right corner of the mat. Might deepen the sensation around your left arm, shoulder, and under the arm. Try your best to keep your hips on the same line, so lots of length through both sides of your waist. Another option for the left hand is to reach it to the sky, chest open to the left, or maybe place your left hand on your lower back or all the way around to your right hip. Breathing around your shoulders, your chest. Really breathing into that sticky spot that sometimes lives between our shoulder blades. And notice, even if usually in this position you would lower your ear and your shoulder to the floor, just notice how it feels to have those parts of the body elevated slightly and more cushioned. It feels nice, hey? Let's take 3 more breaths here. Begin to guide your left hand down to the bolster or the mat. Rise your body all the way back up to tabletop. Readjust the bolster so it is directly under your two hands, and begin to add movement through your hips, your back, your head and neck. Exhale the breath to release that side. And let's go to the other side. Inhale, left arm up to the sky. Exhale, left arm under the right arm. Turn the bolster slightly so now your left ear and your left shoulder can connect to that bolster. Keep your right hand on the bolster or on the mat, or walk your right fingers forwards to the front of the mat and slightly over to the left. Might feel good. Rearrange your hips so that they are on one line and the waist feels long on both sides. Either stay like this or float that right hand to the sky, or wrap it around your lower back or to your left hip. Lots of breath pouring in and around your shoulders. Take 3 more breaths here. And then sweep that right hand back onto the mat or your bolster. Press your way up to tabletop, stacking the bolster under your two hands. Exhaling your breath, rocking the hips a little side to side. Super slow, super gentle. From this position, inhale your right leg back behind you. Bend your right knee into your chest and step your right foot forwards, wiggling the right foot as wide as your mat. Wiggle the bolster forwards a little bit more and take your left knee back a little bit more. Your right toes can stay facing forwards or turned out to the right. Start to rock your hips forwards and back a couple of times. And then begin to lower the pelvis in a forwards and down direction. Now your bolster can stay here under your hands, or you can stack the bolster one height higher and place your forearms to it for a little bit of support. Or you could place the bolster one height lower for the forearms for a bit of support. Or you could place the bolster stacked on its end for your head and rest your hands to the mat. This is a nice release for your neck. Find the version with the bolster that you like best today, that feels most appropriate for you, and stay here. If you have your left forearm or left hand on the bolster and that feels secure, what would it feel like to take your right arm back behind you and open your chest to the right? Maybe bending your left knee and seeing if your left foot and your right hand can meet. If the two find one another, keep drawing that left heel towards you and keep turning your chest to the right. Lots of breath. Begin to lower that left foot back to the floor. Place your hands back onto the bolster and lift the pelvis. Shuffle that right foot back in and step the right knee back. Slide your bolster forwards with your hands to it. Keep your pelvis high and come into puppy pose. lowering your forehead or your chin to the floor or onto a block. Again, if this gets too much around your shoulders, please put the elbows on the floor, bending the arms some more. Keep drawing the belly button to the spine, breathing around your heart. Take 3 more breaths. On your next inhale, lift your chest, slide that bolster towards you. Come back to hands on the bolster, tabletop position, and move the hips and back in any way that feels good between sides. We'll inhale the left leg behind us. Exhale, left knee to chest, step the left foot forwards. Shuffle the left foot as wide as the mat, left toes facing forwards or turned out. Slide your bolster forwards a little bit more, take your right knee back a little bit more, and begin to rock the hips forwards and back, massaging them, lubricating them, preparing them for a deeper hip opener. When you're ready, you can bring that pelvis forwards and down again. Remember, hands can stay on your bolster, or your forearms can come down onto your bolster. Remember the options of maybe stacking the bolster one height higher for the forearms to rest on. Maybe that's where you need to be. Or placing your hands on the floor and placing your forehead to the bolster might be just the right amount of depth for you today. Find the version that works best. Leave the rest, as always. Once you've found the version that you like, that supports you, you can stay. Or if your right forearm or right hand is secure to your prop or the floor, what would it feel like to take your left arm back behind you, opening your chest to the left? Breathing around your outer left hip and thigh, maybe bending your right knee, seeing if your left hand and the top of your right foot can meet. Shoulders rolling down your back. You can look down at your bolster, you can look forwards, or you might look up. A couple more breaths. This is a really lovely sequence to do in your lunch hour if you have time. If you work at a desk, I find this bolster practice to be really grounding, nourishing, soothing, but also really creates lots of lovely and well-needed space in the body to prepare for the afternoon's work. Take your time to lower that right foot and carefully bring your hands back onto the bolster, shuffling your left foot in and stepping the left knee back. Find tabletop again, one more time. Add that little bit of movement and fluidity. And come to center. For the next pose, I want you to shuffle the bolster a little bit closer. And then I want you to put your hands on the mat over the top of the bolster. Walk your knees back a little more. Begin to lower yourself to the bolster, bending at your elbows. Allow your pelvis to connect to the mat, and then place your forearms over the top of the bolster onto the mat. Your rib cage is resting against this bolster. If this feels too much, too deep in your back today, this is Sphinx pose. Another option would be to slide the bolster a little bit further forwards. So maybe just the top of your chest rests to it, your hands rest to it, maybe your chin. Or you could have your forearms a little further out in front of you and still lifting up from the chest. If this feels too much in the back, Bring the bolster even further forwards. Place just your hands and forearms to it, and maybe just your chin. So there's just a little lift through the cervical spine. Maybe that's enough for you today. So find the version of Sphinx pose that works best in your body. If you have your rib cage resting to it, or any of the options actually, you can add in the legs. So feel free to float the feet and shins away from the floor, which may add a bit more compression into the lower back. This might not be for everybody, so just be aware that it's there if you want it. For your head, try and look directly forwards, so try not to look too far down or too high up. Where is neutral? And then lots of breath around your shoulders, your chest, your lower belly. Can you add a bit of breath into the lower belly? And like I said at the start, if you were to teach this as more of a yin style practice, you could of course stay much longer in each of these offerings. If you're teaching this as a Hatha style practice, and maybe it's an hour-long class, you might extend the breaths to maybe 5 or 10 rounds of breath per pose, but it has a little more fluidity like we're doing here in this half an hour segment. Begin to float those feet back to the floor if they're lifted, and walk the feet in a little more, walk the legs in a little more. Place your hands onto the floor, either side of the bolster. Press into them, engage your core, come onto your knees, and return your hands to the bolster. Move through your tabletop one last time here. And then come around to a seated position and bring the bolster underneath your legs. Connect the soles of your feet together. Let the knees go wide. Slide your heels forwards a little bit and place your hands to your shins. Pull your belly button in, chin to chest, round the back, and slide the hands down the fronts of your legs. Forehead becoming closer to the floor, or maybe your nose or forehead rests towards your bolster. This rounded version of butterfly pose is to target the lower back and the outer hips and thighs. The option of having the bolster under the legs supports the outer knees and the outer thighs. It makes it a little more restorative. It gives the legs something to ground into. Continue on like this. Couple more breaths for the back and for your hips. The bolster is so versatile. It can do so much for us. I almost feel like there is endless possibilities for using the bolster throughout a practice. And it's really fun. It plays with your creativity to find ways to make a logical and fluid sequence while being mindful of integrating the bolster in every pose. I really encourage you to try it sometime with your own students. When you're ready, you can roll up through your back, slide your hands up your legs, lift up through the spine. Take a big breath in. Big breath out. Gather your hands to the outsides of your legs. Bring your knees together. Bring the bolster now in front of you and onto your thighs. Extend your legs forwards and nuzzle the bolster as close to your belly, your hips as you can. Flex the feet, have your legs your hip distance apart. Take an inhale breath. And as you exhale, fold your chest over the bolster and rest your hands maybe to your legs or around your feet, or maybe hands on the floor. Folding forwards to find enough sensation in your legs and your back. This is a great option for those coming into a deeper fold, but also supported by the bolster, which is offering a gentle massage into your lower belly as you press bolster against belly. If this is not quite the right fit for your body, another option would be to take your legs a little bit wider so that the bolster will fit in between your legs. You can manipulate the bolster to a point so that your forehead will rest on one end and the other end is connected to the floor. Maybe this is enough depth for you in your legs and back, while also giving the head a little extra support. Take a few more breaths here. And then start to place your hands on the bolster and lift your head back up. We're going to place the bolster now behind us, and you're going to keep your pelvis on the floor. I want the bolster to either sit at your lower back if you don't have compression in your lower back, it doesn't feel too icky to lie down on the bolster this way. If that feels too much in your lower back, then lift your head back up, slide that bolster a bit further away. So it's just going to rest on your shoulder blades and the back of your head. So you can come all the way down onto your shoulders and the back of your head. From here, you can take your legs into Shavasana a little longer and wider, and you can take your arms a little wider into a T shape or a cactus shape. Relax your shoulders into the floor, and let there be a lovely spaciousness across your heart, your chest, the front of your belly. Feel free to play with rolling the shoulders up, back and down, or placing your hands on your shoulders and circling your elbows. Feel free to float your arms all the way up to the sky and then all the way back behind you and then all the way down to your sides. You can do these as many times as feels good to create space in the chest and shoulders. And we'll finish here in rest pose of Shavasana. You can keep the bolster where it is under your back and head, or you can remove the bolster and place it underneath your legs, so under the knees, and let the whole back come to the floor. Widen the legs, widen the arms, and take rest. Shavasana. There are so many more options we can take with the bolster. So I would love to do a part 2 of this with you soon. But for now, I'll leave you here in Shavasana. Please take as long as you need in this pose to rest and restore, to ground, to recharge, ready for your afternoon. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the notes. and I truly look forward to guiding you again soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.